One of my favorite things as a video game music fan, as well as a Final Fantasy fan, is a series of events called Distant World and also A New World. These two events are basically a celebration of the best music in the Final Fantasy series, which takes place all over the world in the form of orchestral concerts, which are actually freaking mind-blowing. So much so that I actually cried the first time I went to one of those. And today I had the chance to sit down with one of the main pillars of these two events, Eric Roth, which is an orchestrator as well as arranger and conductor at A New World. And we talked about his experience working with Final Fantasy music and Uematsu and conducting Final Fantasy concerts all over the world. I will show you the interview now because Eric is a very interesting character to talk to about Final Fantasy music in general. And I recommend you, if you have not been to one of these events, check out the tickets, which are available now for the current tour as well as the albums they have available on streaming and on Bandcamp. I'm going to leave all that in the description. And now here's my interview with Eric Roth. I'm sure many people can relate to this as well. When I went to Distant Worlds the first time, I felt emotions that I didn't know I could feel anymore. Like the orchestra was playing the FF7 main theme, and behind them there was this huge screen with like the cloud running around the world map. And I cried like a freaking baby, man. Like I was bawling like crazy.
I thank you for sharing that. I understand. And that particular selection is one that moves me in deep ways too. I mean, especially as a musician, not just about the game, but like I listen to that piece that you're talking about in particular. And I think about Uematsu-san's incredible melodies in particular, and not just the fact that he's written so many of them, but the kind of care and beauty of how he's developed each one of them and the lives that they've lived, these melodies that he's constructed. And it is very moving as a musician.
Having to work with such material, like you are taking these historical pieces of music and arrange them for real orchestra, which is not always easy because at the time they were written with MIDI sound fonts and stuff. So translating them to real instruments already creates like a different mood. It must be very challenging to have to do that and maintain the soul of what they had as MIDI sound font pieces. Do you feel any like a kind of pressure or something like that when you're working on that, or does it feel more natural,
I mean, pressure is not the word I would use. I would call it responsibility. You know what I mean? I feel a responsibility to the community of people who have such a deep relationship with this music before I get my hands on it. You know what I mean? So that responsibility is probably the largest one I feel. I also feel a lot of responsibility to the original composers and to the creators of the games for that matter. It's their vision, and I take that seriously. I mean, it's, I think you know what I'm talking about as an arranger. It's because the way you
for me, honestly.
You describe the challenge pretty well. I think is that you want to maintain the identity of the original in a meaningful way, where listeners are not feeling like, what is the identity of this piece?
Right.
You don't want that question in their head. You want them to understand the identity of the music. And you need to bring something fresh to the table.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge.
Right? Like, so getting that kind of balance and like understanding where you live as an arranger and orchestrator in this incredibly beautiful community is it's a serious responsibility and an incredible privilege. That's how I look at it.
I want to ask you a few questions that people ask me, and I also want to talk about A New World because while I was listening to it, I was like, oh my God, this is some very good stuff. Like, for example, one of my favorite tracks is the track you made for Ivalice, Final Fantasy 12. Like, it's like this 8 minute and a half of like arrangements, like a medley of all the different melodies in Final Fantasy 12. And I really like A New World because Distant Worlds is freaking amazing. It's grandiose and stuff. A New World is more intimate, right? It's more like chamber music. But what I like a lot is that you take the liberty to arrange tracks that you probably would not hear at Distant Worlds that much, like the more obscure tracks. One Winged Angel, yes, you're gonna hear it all the time at Distant Worlds. But I don't know if I ever heard like a Final Fantasy 12 medley like that at Distant Worlds. That was very interesting. So I really like that.
You got the idea, right? They're really different kinds of productions, right? There's the big immersive experience of Distant Worlds and the big orchestra shows, the video and all that stuff, choir, these kind of things. It's a lot of people, a lot of force. And then with A New World, we have these intimate chamber music shows that are in smaller halls where you really can understand exactly what every individual is contributing to the music, if you want to have that kind of attention, right? And
I don't
you're
want people to
absolutely
think that
right.
intimate. I don't want people to. I'm gonna stop you here for a second because
Oh,
I
okay.
don't want people to think that intimate means like smaller and stuff. No, it still sounds huge. I don't know how you do it, by the way. Like when I write orchestral music myself, I have to use like big orchestral patches and stuff. Otherwise, it sounds very small. But
Hmm.
you're able to summon a very big sound even with a smaller orchestra. I don't know how you do that. It sounds like magic to me.
Ah, that's
and
that's very flattering, Alex. Thank you so much.
And one of the questions that we got asked is exactly that. A friend of mine called, yeah, and also I suppose you want to arrange the music in a way that is fun to play for the instrumentalist, right? That is one challenge that people don't know about orchestral music is that if you take just the MIDI lines that were written and you just put them one to one and you say, cello player, play this, it might not have been written to be performed by a cello player at first. So maybe if you have them play the exact same thing, it's not going to sound as convincing. So you kind of have to rearrange them in a way that sounds alive, it sounds made for orchestra, right?
That's right. I mean, or it might not balance as well on that particular instrument if you just put it all in that instrument.
That is very tricky though, because like sometimes we have games that get remastered. Like they will go from a PS2 release to a
Yeah.
PS4 release and they remaster the soundtrack and they take the
Yes.
digital like soundtrack from PS2 and remodernize it with modern sounds. And in doing that, sometimes we lose some details like that. This weird melody played on this instrument where it shouldn't belong, but because it was digital, it was fine. Now on PS4, then they're not going to do the same thing. And sometimes that is better on technical level, but the listeners feel like, oh my God, I missed that special something. And so,
Right. There's something missing, right?
yeah, it's
Yeah, that's
very,
right.
very,
Yeah.
very hard to translate stuff for orchestras and make it sound still engaging and very interesting. But what I was listening to A New World, and I'm not like saying this just to give an impression or something. No, no, no. I was listening to it and I was like, wow, I get why this is called A New World, because you get to experience these memories, these memorable soundtracks in a completely new way that is actually freaking cool. Like Chaos Shrine from Final Fantasy One, that arrangement you guys wrote is so amazing. It was so freaking cool. Like it's very nice. So I really really appreciate it. Even One Winged Angel,
Wow.
like it was very fun to hear One Winged Angel in that like more intimate setting. So
Thanks, man.
yeah,
I really appreciate that. I feel like that's where the creativity comes in, right?
yeah,
Of what we do is actually having ideas to bring the richness of those original experiences with us to these
yeah,
new settings, right?
yeah.
Like that's where our creativity and skills are. So, I mean, that makes me feel really great to hear you talking about Chaos Shrine that way in
Nice.
particular.
It's very
Yeah.
deserved. What was your favorite track of all the ones you arranged on A New World?
I still feel really great about the Fight with Seymour
Ooh.
string quartet version. I feel like it was like
I
I
gotta
feel like it
listen
was
to
a
it.
really good idea and it's really fun and it's not like the original, but it achieves that balance that I was talking
Yeah.
about retaining the identity of the original and bringing something really fresh to the table in a really surprising way. And that's how Uematsu-san felt about it too. He was like, "Wow, I didn't see that coming, and I
Man, it
really
must be
like it."
amazing to
You
get
know?
praise from Uematsu himself. Like, I was talking with him on a Zoom call just a few months ago. It was insane. Like, I lost my freaking mind. In the call, I was being serious. I didn't want to show my fanboy, but
I
I was
understand. Yeah,
I was going crazy inside, and I showed him one of my Final Fantasy VII arrangements, and he really liked it. And I was like, oh my God,
I
so
know.
emotional. So it must
That's
be
a.
crazy.
I know what you're talking about. He's a very generous, beautiful guy.
Yeah.
In how he interacts with others, as in my experience. And it does feel great to be able to interact with him and like talk about music. I mean, we've talked about music so much. It's like I'm never gonna lose those interactions. So I feel pretty great about that.
I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite memory from touring with A Distant World or A New World? And what's your funniest memory from touring also?
Now, here's a real funny one that I've told before, so please forgive me, people who have heard it before. But It was pretty funny. It was at Otakon. And so Friday night was the Distant World show. And then Sunday afternoon was the A New World show. So, Distant World show happened. Saturday, we did some things. Sunday, here we are. We're doing the A New World show. And it's the end of the show. There was some pressure on it for me in the sense that Uematsu-san is there in attendance, and it's been a great performance. Been having a great time. Lots of love, lots of fun. It's the encore. Doing, I'm not going to ruin anything because I've been doing this for a while now, where we pull out our Chocobo medley for the encore, and there's like this little thing where we do the Samba de Chocobo as part of it, and I whip around from my position as conductor and face the audience and start performing the samba whistle part on a slide whistle, right? It's silly, it's fun, it works with the music, it's a lot of fun. And this particular time, I turned around, flipped around, about to do the first sound on the slide whistle, and the thing breaks into one,
No.
Yeah, just like right in that moment before I make the sound, like one piece is in one hand, the other's on the floor, and the part with the slide just falls out. It's on the floor.
Oh my God.
The other is in my hand. So, Alex, I'm a performer. In the moment, I start, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sing this part. I start singing the slide whistle part into the microphone. Like I'm doing that stuff.
That's
and
amazing.
The place is going nuts, right? Because it's hilarious. It's really silly.
Yeah, people
right?
don't often see conductors like, breaking, like that.
Yeah, breaking the fourth
breaking
wall
character.
or whatever.
Like you have to be like formal and stuff, right? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so we do this and finish the piece. It was incredibly fun. Like everybody's cracking up, dying laughing. Uematsu-san comes up on stage. Like we take some bows. We're dying laughing. We go backstage. And it's this convention center, so it's not like there's a traditional green room situation. So we're back here in this convention center hallway, just him and me. And it takes us about 10 minutes to compose ourselves from laughing hysterically. And that's all we're doing for like a long time, like not even like using any words, because we're just like dying laughing about what just went down for a while. And I'll never forget that. That was a really precious, funny.
That sounds freaking amazing. I wish I was there to see it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow, that's I commend and I compliment your skill to be a showman in such stressful situations. It's in those moments that you realize who's the real showman and who's not.
That's right.
That's very nice. That is very nice. There is one track that people have asked for in the comments that I'm sure probably no one will ever have the courage to perform. It's called Almighty Bunivelze from Final Fantasy.
I know that tune. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the most insane pieces of music I've heard in a video game. Like it's so complex.
If we can do Dancing Mad, why can't we do that?
I mean, it's true. Actually, you have a good point. I was there, by the way, when you played Dancing Mad at Royal Albert Hall with the 7,100 pipe organ.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It was crazy.
Ridiculous. was that the most ridiculous performance you ever made, or is it something else like that was apart from the Chocobo with the tin whistle sang by you? and Dancing Mad. Were there other performances that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, when we've done the opera with the Earthbound Papas, I mean, like that sort of stuff. I mean, that's been pretty intense, like
the Final Fantasy VI opera, like Maria and
yes, exactly. I mean, it's plenty of music. and I don't know if I've performed the narrator part on that many times, which is really. That's an interesting challenge because we're talking about, in the game, right? That's just text there. There's no sound that goes with it, right? So it's an interesting kind of challenge to like live in that performance mode in a way that people feel okay about, but it's so much fun. And, I love being there and being a part of that community in that way.
Yeah, honestly, after you told me about the Chocobo whistle story, I trust you with anything. That's I definitely want to come see the New York concert just for you.
Oh, thanks.
I hope people who watch this interview are gonna be interested in checking out A New World. The albums are on Spotify and on digital stores, right? People can get them.
Oh yeah, anywhere. And especially Bandcamp, I will say. Just for what it's worth.
I saw there's these collections like you have 7 or 8 like collections of Final Fantasy VII music from A Distant World and A New World together, right?
That's right. We've done a few of those collections as well.
Yeah, I will link all of them in the description of this video. I recommend any Final Fantasy fan to check them out because if you didn't understand it from this interview, I don't know how you didn't, but if you didn't, the music Eric writes and arranges is quite unique. And even though you've heard these pieces of Final Fantasy music all your life, experiencing them like this is gonna hit different. You know, for what I've heard in the few tracks I heard, I was already like, yes, this is great. And now talking with you, I'm like, he knows what he's talking about. So
Thank you, Alex.
them
That's
out.
very flattering in a lot of different ways. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries. But before I forget, you can watch the entire 50 minutes version of this interview on my podcast channel. I'm going to link it down below in the description. I will also leave a link to the Bandcamp page for A New World, which is where you can listen to those beautiful Final Fantasy arrangements completely for free, and leave a link to the page where you can buy the tickets in case you want to go see the shows in America and in Germany. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.